Hi, I'm Ben Bomar, president and founder of Lithius Group, and I'm glad that you're here today. We're going to talk about in this special sort of rapid fire Q&A how to spend the last 2 weeks if you've had a surprise resignation. And I'll say that there hasn't been a lot of lead up to this event, so that's a bit intentional because oftentimes we don't have access to foreknowledge that someone's going to resign on us. At the same time, this is always available on demand, and you can look at that at any time. So whether you're watching live today or watching later, I'm glad that you're here. I want to talk about, in this session today, kind of what's the mindset that I'd like you to have. I want you to think about what it would be like if a member of your team has resigned. Maybe that's happened to you this week, and that's why you're here. If it has, I'm sorry, and I know that you're going through it. If it hasn't, put yourself in that mindset because if you're a manager, you've likely been there before. So you're somewhere between frustrated and panicked and not really sure what to do. Well, I love this word resourceful, full of resources. And so hopefully the next 20 to 25 minutes is going to be full of resources for you. That's certainly how we've designed it. And the questions that we've already received and that will be answered should give you that sense of being resourceful. So we'll have 4 keys to success. I've got some questions that were asked in advance, as well as some common questions. I'll take your questions live, and then I'll show you where there'll be available resources for ongoing support. And to that end, about your questions, if you've got them, please feel free to put those in the chat as we go. No need to save those. I'll have those off to the side, and we'll answer. So feel free to start adding those in as we proceed. But who am I and what gives me the right to speak on this? Well, as I said, I'm Ben Bomar, founder of Lithius Group. And as it says on screen, we focus on improving transitions and employee succession and performance for any reason. Resignations are a type of transition. Retirement are a type of transition. And what we do is amplify and focus on the institutional knowledge of those key people and their best practices. And that's really what you want to spend the last 2 weeks of someone's tenure with you doing. So I talked about the 4 keys to success. What are they? Well, first, it's evaluating trust. It is important to take a moment to have an idea of, hey, is our trust solid or solid enough to make our efforts over the next 2 weeks be successful? Next, where do we focus those efforts? Then, how do we use the calendar to maximize the amount of time that we have? And lastly, what does it mean to celebrate, and specifically celebrate teaching in this moment? And why is that so important? So first, I want to start off with this idea of the trust equation. I love it. It comes from Dr. David Maister and his colleagues in their book, The Trusted Advisor. And trust is something that we all think we understand, and yet it can be nebulous. And so the trust equation breaks trust down into 4 components. Credibility, reliability, and intimacy build trust. That means, do you know what you're talking about? Do you show up consistently? And do you have a relationship with someone where they share their concerns and some vulnerabilities, and you in turn share yours? If you've got those 3, you've got a really strong opportunity for trust. What undermines trust is self-orientation. Are they in it for themselves? Are they in it for you? Are you mutually supportive? Because we all know that you can know what you're talking about and you can be there every day. But if you're only in it for yourself, then we don't really trust those people. And so the key question for you in a resignation situation is, how damaged is self-orientation? And quite honestly, it has to take a hit, because deciding that your future is not their future is one of the most self-oriented things you can do. And yet, does it really have an impact on the credibility, the reliability, and the intimacy that you have built up over these years? So assess for yourself. Your trust has taken a hit. That is true. But have they undermined fundamentally their command of your industry, their reliability, and the trust that they built with their colleagues who they're not quitting on? Just consider that, because that affects how you move forward. And it's important to focus on that and this idea of components, because if you have a measure of trust with them, then you can start to preserve this institutional knowledge, because that's what you fear leaving, right? You fear them taking their knowledge with them and you no longer having access to it. And yet that also feels nebulous. We use this image along with the baton of the kintsugi, this Japanese art of mending broken pottery with gold. And the reason we do that is because these folks, these key people, it's not that they just know your playbook. They know when it was broken. They know how they fixed and made it better when it was broken. And that's the gold that they're taking with them. And that can be really terrifying to think about them leaving. And so break that down again. And we use this framework of knowing, doing, and being to help articulate and prioritize what it is that's important. So, first off, knowing. Is it something, do they have a command of your business, your industry, uh, your department? Is it something that they just understand and know? Is that what you're going to miss? Are they taking with them their skills, their ability to move the mouse, as we sometimes say, their ability to manage a process? Is it something that they execute that you're worried is not going to be executed as well in the future? Or is it their approach, their being? Do they light up a room? Do they add a ton to a team? Do they lead a team or mentor others well? If you can start to break apart and understand the particular aspects of institutional knowledge that you're going to miss, you're going to be able to focus on them better. And so that's what you should do over the 2 weeks that you have left. You want to reset the calendar, right? We all expect when folks resign on us that it's just going to blow up our day and blow up the next 2 weeks and probably having lasting impacts beyond that. I want to encourage you to set a goal for them, that person who's resigning, to dedicate 20 hours over the remaining 2 weeks towards preserving their institutional knowledge. And there is a way to do that strategically. The first is by setting up the plan. Focus on the time that you have left, assess that, define the to-dos, more on that in just a moment. Figure out how you message to others within the organization, and they will need to participate because we know people talk. And quite frankly, a lot of how you handle a resignation is more about what other people observe than it is actually the person who's resigning, leaving, and what they do. Because the rest of your team is looking to see how ready for this, measured, planful, and supportive you are of them and their future selves. Now, that being said, let's get into the brass tacks. File structure. Absolutely. Start to understand how they structure their files. If they're on a shared drive, worse. If they're only on their laptop, figure out how that's structured and understand that. Get a tour of those files. And then make sure you have a plan around security. Understand passwords, software, any sort of subscriptions that are out there. Get a sense and work with your IT team on that. Then get into those 3 aspects of institutional knowledge. One of the things to look at is knowing. So we have project overviews. Get a sense of the priority projects, where they are. A 1-pager on each priority project would be helpful. Also prioritize contacts. It's not just that you need everybody in their contacts folder on their Outlook. You need to get a sense of who matters most. That can be who you email most frequently, but get a sense of those priority contacts, who matters a lot generally, and then who matters a lot right now when it comes to ongoing projects. Then look at downstream and upstream. It's a term we use inside of Lithius, and essentially it means who are you providing value to and what are they expecting from your role? It's different than projects. It's more general. Who do you consist? Is it your team? Is it your colleagues? Is it a cross function? Is it a customer? And then what do you need to be successful from upstream? So where are you getting this information that you need to be successful? Map that out. And then lastly, just a quick hit, bookmarks. What they bookmark in their browser for professional reasons is highly effective and helpful. Then look at the doing. And here I want you to prioritize activities and leverage that Pareto principle. If you're not familiar with the 80-20, well worth a Google. But look at what are the 5 activities that dominate their week, their month, their quarter, and their year. Start there. Have them take you through that tour. Then look at their digital skills. It's a bit of a different term, maybe chosen for space on this slide, but what it means is, how do they move the mouse? Do they go to this website, download this information, turn that into a PowerPoint or a pivot, take that information and put that into a PowerPoint, send it off to someone else? What's that daisy chain of a skill? Similarly, what are the processes that they understand lights out? Do they understand your sales pipeline? Have they figured out how to respond to RFPs? It's not something you bang out in an afternoon, but it is something that's really valuable. Or is it that they have wisdom around a particular persona? They know how to take care of a key customer, another colleague group, a supplier. That is actual execution and not just knowing. And lastly, being. Being is a little nebulous, and with the time you have remaining, you want to be sparing on this one, but I want to point out two things. One is start with gratitude. Gratitude for the tenure that they've had with your organization. Avoid recency bias. Don't just be upset by the resignation. Really be thankful for their tenure. To that end, a great way to help them do that is to go through another Googleable topic called the hero's journey. Look at the hero's journey. Have them tell you their story. How did they enter your organization? Who were their mentors? What did they discover about themselves? What challenges did they overcome? And what knowledge do they have now being on the other side of it? That, in a nutshell, is the Harry Potter, Luke Skywalker, Katniss Everdeen story. And it's transformational to take someone through that. Then offer them a chance to recognize others and be recognized by others, however you so choose. And lastly, have gratitude for the last 2 weeks. Have gratitude for how they have helped, because other people are watching. And that's where it can get difficult. I have difficulty sometimes celebrating those folks who are leaving. Now, I have had folks resign on me and my manager never spoke to that person again. It's a terrible situation to be in. But celebrating that person who's leaving, it just can feel difficult. So instead, celebrate the act of teaching. The work that they are putting in this 20 hours over 2 weeks is really teaching future members of your team. And it's helping them teach the peers that are going to step up even in the interim for them right now. So peers are a powerful motivator. Those relationships might outlast your manager-employee relationship. It also sets an expectation that folks who leave are expected to contribute all the way through. And it will allow you as a manager to sort of set aside any personal feelings of frustration and instead focus on that team that's going to be with you in the future. Remember, those other folks are watching. So help make them the focus of that last 2 weeks. All right, so let's look at some Q&A, and that's sort of 10 minutes on 10 to 12 minutes on my piece. And it looks like I've got a question in the chat that I will address. Let's see. Love this comparison, Ben. One of my first roles out of college was a marketing job. My first week, my predecessor and I had a phone call to do a knowledge transfer. It was helpful. That's great. Yes, it is not always the case that the predecessor is there to do the transfer, particularly inside of that 2 week notice period, and also if you have to go outside for this for a replacement. So if it's internal promotion, maybe you get lucky. But in a lot of our modern workforces, we're just not going to be able to sort of always have that redundancy to allow someone to step up immediately. So I'll take any more questions from the chat. And meanwhile, I will get to some that I got in advance. So the first one, I love this question. So what is the best first thing to say? You're sitting there in the office, or maybe you've only gotten this over email or Teams, and the person has just quit on you. We all kind of need a playbook of what to say. Here's what I would say. Consider that trust equation and think about how you are maintaining and building trust with them all the way through the last day. And so let's address 3 of the 4 components. First, thank them for their service. It sounds cheesy. We say it all the time. It matters, right? Especially when this person is someone whose institutional knowledge is valued and has been a part of your success. Next, some variation of that big shoes to fill. Let them know that it's going to hurt to lose them personally, professionally, as a team, right? Not just that they're a cog in the wheel, but that they've left a mark and a legacy. That helps with that intimacy. And then rather than start to think about what your journey is going to be like and amping up your own self-orientation, ask them what's next for them. Now, there's a whole lot of legal and HR about they don't have to tell you, and you shouldn't be upset if they shouldn't, or if they choose not to, but demonstrate low self-orientation by showing interest in them. Question number two. What if there's not a full 2 weeks of PTO? Got it. Okay, so oftentimes this will happen. People sort of stack up their vacations. They'll have some days that they're going to take, and again, based on the laws and policies within your organization, you can or can't you do or don't have a lot of influence over that. Instead, when you know that you have limited time, they've given you 2 weeks, but they're going to take the last one full on vacation. It's important to look at get as much off their plate as possible. There is this concept of the tyranny of the now, that I need to clear the desk before someone leaves, that I need to wrap up all the projects that they're working on. If you could do it that fast, you would already have a plan to do it that fast. So forcing it in the last 2 weeks with someone who has demonstrated an intention to go somewhere else and care more about somebody else's problems than yours can be difficult. So shift as much as you can, appropriately, fairly, compassionately, to the folks who are going to be doing it for a little while. And then focus on that knowing and doing piece. So what is it that they know and what is it that they're doing? And leverage the technology that you have available to capture as much of that doing as possible. Here we are using a streaming service to provide something that we are creating live and then will be available on demand later for repeated viewing by whoever chooses to do that. You've got those technologies as well. You've got Zoom, you've got Teams. If you're not using Loom, I've done a whole different conversation around that. These are screen sharing, recording, transcribing tools that would allow someone to demonstrate how they work. And so if you have limited time, rather than having a sort of a precise curated narration of what someone does, I recommend just leaning on that technology, capture as much as you can online, and leave it to the remaining team to go back and make sense of it later. So that would be my recommendations. If you don't have 2 full weeks, record absolutely everything you can, sift through it later, and get them to really focus on what they know and what they have done for your organization. All right, I don't see any more questions in the chat, but good that we have a few more, so we'll keep plowing away. All right, what if the person is hostile? Got it. And I'm actually going to look away because there's a whole lot here on the screen. So if the person is hostile, but really important, you have to take a look at how much trust you actually have. And quite frankly, when someone is hostile, do you really believe what they're going to tell you? Because if you're going to second guess all of their questions as to why they told you the things that they did when you asked them the questions and they provided you the answers, then you might be wasting your time to capture a ton of it. So, we choose not to work with really hostile witnesses. That's not a great way to try to create something of lasting value in our programs. And you should think about, you need to do what's right by your organization, but you need to have realistic expectations, because maybe the trust really isn't there. So similar to that previous one where you don't have a lot of time, here we don't have a lot of trust. So identify those interims and backups, and then start focusing on maintaining and building trust with them. Move from trying to repair a hostile relationship with someone you're going to work with for only 10 more business days, and instead reframe your efforts to make sure that you're credible and psychologically safe or intimate with your team, and that you are showing low self-orientation. So just shift who you focus on, because it might be fruitless and ultimately not helpful for you to try to repair a low trust situation with limited time. So definitely recommend you go that way. This one is a great one. So what about the situations that we're in right now with work from home or hybrid. A couple things are really working in your favor when you have this, right? Because there people who work from home or work hybrid have access often to a lot more digital tools like the Teams and the Loom and the Zooms that I talked about, and so the ability to leverage technology is a lot better. Also, the ability to be flexible. Schedules are easier to adjust, and so it might be easier for that person to set aside that 2 hours every day over the course of the last 10 days to record, document, share, and provide. On the other hand, you have to think about supervision. And so, working on setting up that plan early, that there are progress checks, that someone can is delivering X or Y during that period, that they've made a commitment to you as a part of the trust that you've established over the course of the last, in your relationship, and then leveraging it during the last 2 weeks. You know, so but still, they're working from home, they're away. Progress doesn't always go as fast as you want it. And then lastly, depending on how you've communicated with others, working from home often means that everyone can reach you by Teams chat or Slack or email or phone call or text. And so it can be really distracting. We can always, in an office, you might be able to put somebody in a temporary office or a different office or cube and kind of wall them off. You don't necessarily have access to that. So think about how you might try to reduce distractions for them so that they can really prioritize this activity. Last couple of quick hits, and then we'll get back to the chat and see if there are any more questions. Um, should I counter Ben Bomar? I don't generally, but really, it's your approach and HR. And that's really kind of outside the scope, but I appreciate that the question came through, because it is something. Especially, I love this variant of should we get them to extend their period, ask for an extra week? I mean, you can always ask, but talk your mileage may vary, and talk with your team. What if they give no notice? I'm going to say that the trust probably wasn't there, right? It probably wasn't well evaluated, or something has happened, and maybe that is a serious knock to the self orientation. The best thing you can do in that point is sort of learn the lessons and try not to get in that situation again. And then exit interviews, and I put sort of tongue in cheek here, that's fireproofing bridges, right? So you're just making sure that no one company or employee is burning bridges, and you're providing some closure for them so that bridge stays intact. But generally, exit interviews are rarely conducted by subject matter experts in the area that these key people have expertise. So it's you've got sort of a well-intentioned third party who doesn't have the context to understand the knowledge, the doing, the being, or that's not the focus, and it's a lot on culture, which is important, but not really what we're getting at here. Of how do we transition the role and the skills and try to maintain business continuity. All right. So I don't see any more chess questions in the chat. So thank you for those of you that provided those in advance. That gave me a few extra minutes to get ready for them. And as we kind of wrap up here, I want to talk about sort of additional resources for you. As I said, this is a really reactive type of situation. You're here because this idea of someone resigning on you in short notice. What would you do? So they've chosen to put you in check, and now you have to react. Well, you're going to receive the Responding to a Resignation planner as a part of participating. If you are watching on demand, just drop us a note at info@lithius.com and put resignation plan in the subject, and we'll be happy to send it. You can always schedule a support call. So that QR code, or visiting my Calendly, if someone has resigned on you and you just kind of need to know, give me a tutorial and help me brush up on what I need to do. You can certainly watch this again, but happy to spend a few minutes with you and kind of guide you through some best practices. And then lastly, you should know that we do have a program for high trust offboarding. And you understand now what high trust means. It means someone who knows what they're talking about. They've been showing up for you. You have a relationship in which there's psychological safety, and they have demonstrated some pretty low self-orientation. And often that means they want to leave a legacy. If they want those things, then inside the 2 weeks notice, we have a variety of tools and a program that we can deploy rapidly to help them preserve their wisdom for you and your ongoing team. But I have to say, waiting for someone else to put you in check and be reactive is not it's not ideal. And so I would instead like to offer you proactive support, and all of this is free of charge. The first is you could have a survey session with Lithius. And what we do during that is we walk through your team, we assess the types of institutional knowledge that exists, who has them, we assess the risks, and we prioritize what actions you might want to take. And the outputs of that are yours to keep, whether you choose to work with us or not. That's sort of that's an involved process. It's an hour or so of your and your team's time. If you're not there yet, then we do have a key person risk worksheet, which helps identify 4 key people, tie their work to your goals, and help you assess the priority and the risk that exists within your organization on a person by person basis. You want that? info@lithius.com. Drop us a note. Happy to send it to you. Just put key person risk worksheet in the email. And then lastly, 24 hours a day on our website, there is our key person risk calculator. And if you will load in some anonymous or anonymized data that's like plus minus $20,000, so it's really hard to it's anonymized. We've done that for your protection. You will get a detailed risk assessment that quantifies the negative impacts of a poor transition to your organization and quantifies the positive impacts of sharing and promoting and amplifying the wisdom and the knowledge of your best people today. So visit lithius.com/risk-benefit for that. And with that, I want to say thank you for being here today. It's a contact information for me, and then I'll jump back to the previous slide just for these proactive resources. Thank you for being here. I hope that you're not facing the situation. If that's the case, then congratulations on trying to be proactive and be ready for it. We are always here. I hope you'll follow me here on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect. But this is the type of content that we post all the time on LinkedIn and Instagram. And again, thank you very much for being here today. Take care.